Let's continue where we left off with Dandadan Chapter 197, titled Earthworm Go, and Chapter 198, titled Smash the Typhoon's Eye. Let's get started. While the Tsukinoko was doing its thing, Momo, amazed, commented that it was flying around like crazy. Gigi called it awesome, but immediately realized it was still technically their enemy, so he probably shouldn't be feeling that way. Momo then said she couldn't understand why the Tsukinoko wasn't freezing despite being out in the open air. Naki called her a dummy and told her never to underestimate a being that was raised underground. The Kido family continued unleashing a rapid-fire barrage of shark bullets at the Typhoon human. At the same time, the Typhoon seemed to be countering by launching its own shark torpedo attacks. Momo called Gigi over and told him they needed to get serious too. One shark struck solidly near the exit point of the giant Mongolian death worm, creating a hole on the side of the plane, which began sucking everything toward it with powerful vacuum pressure. Because Momo was small, she was easily blown away by the pressure, flung around, and nearly hit by flying debris, which alarmed Gigi. He immediately sprang into action, letting go of the seat he was holding onto. He leaped toward the hole, using another seat's backrest as leverage to try and reach Momo. He slipped through the gap, and as he braced himself against being pulled out, he tried to grab Momo. Unfortunately, just as he was about to reach her, he couldn't manage to catch her, and Momo continued flying away from him. Gigi screamed in sheer panic as he watched helplessly. However, just as Momo was about to crash into the vertical stabilizer of the plane, Zuma pierced through from the inside. With one of his umbrellas, he caught Momo, and with the other, stabbed the ground to anchor himself from being blown away. Gigi was stunned by his arrival on the scene, while Zuma asked Momo if she was inside his umbrella. He closed it and quickly retracted it to check if he had really caught her. Fortunately, he did. Right after, he called out to Fuda, asking him to guide him since he still couldn't see. Then, a frozen shark came flying straight at him, knocking him off balance and dislodging him from the plane. Gigi screamed in alarm, but he didn't panic and moved swiftly to act. Thanks to his quick reaction, he was able to grab Zuma's wrist before he was completely blown away and also held onto the edge of the hole. Struggling to keep their bodies from being swept out, Gigi asked where Momo was. Zuma replied that he was holding on to her. He then called out to Momo, asking her to talk to him. Still in pain, Momo apologized and thanked him for saving her. On Naki's side, she drew everyone's attention and asked how many more sharks they needed to throw at the Typhoon human. Each Kido family member echoed the same question. Naki pointed out that the bastard hadn't weakened at all. Momo yelled at them not to stop, and the message was passed along through each Kido family member until it reached Naki. Except it got twisted into Donut Shop, which made Naki comment that it sounded delicious. Curiously, she asked what the hell those idiots were talking about and shouted that it wasn't the time to eat. One Kido member noticed that the Typhoon human had a nose with sharks sticking out of each nostril and pointed it out to Naki, who immediately told him to shut up and called him a dum-dum. Suddenly, the Typhoon human forcefully sneezed out the sharks from its nostrils. With such speed and force, the blast tore right through the Tsukinoko, leaving a massive hole in it with zero resistance. Everyone was shocked and shaken by how the Typhoon retaliated. Naki was especially distressed by the injuries sustained by her great serpent lord. Momo cursed in surprise, and Naki, seething with rage, declared that a mere god-dang Typhoon dared to injure the great serpent lord. She pointed out that the Typhoon was clogging its nostrils with sharks and then launching them at them like missiles, which only made Momo even more irritated with the creature. The Tsukinoko's body was completely torn apart and began drifting away from the plane, prompting Gigi to tell Momo that without the worm, they had no way of pummeling the Typhoon with the frozen sharks. Momo shouted that it wasn't going to happen on her watch and immediately used her powers to reach for the Tsukinoko's body. She managed to grab hold of it, but due to the powerful suction of the wind, they began getting dragged along. Thankfully, she was able to latch onto the plane again using her powers while Gigi told her to hold her ground. However, she couldn't hold on for long and eventually lost her grip, causing them to be blown away from the plane. They screamed as they flew off, while Zuma was completely shaken by the situation. Gigi informed him that they were no longer on the plane. Meanwhile, one of the Kido members cried out to Naki for help, saying they were falling. but she screamed at him to shut up and called him a simpleton. Despite all that was happening, Momo refused to give up. She declared that there's no way she's letting this happen. She used her psychokinesis and attached a long, invisible hand to the Tsukunoko's body. Because of that, the creature regained shape and appeared to fly again. The Kido family cheered at this turn of events, and Naki proudly boasted that it was the Great Serpent and praised its fantastic power. Gigi was amazed and asked Momo how she was doing that. Momo explained that it was now like a carp windsock. She elaborated that the worm had become a tube, so she used her powers to punch a hole through it to let air flow into its mouth, allowing it to fly like a kite. She then called out to Naki, referring to her as Old Bag, and ordered her to pull the Tsukunoko's head upward. Naki was startled that she could hear Momo's voice. As Momo yelled at her that she needs to climb higher, Gigi nervously asked what she was doing, pointing out that the plane was leaving them behind and they wouldn't be able to throw any more sharks like this. Momo disagreed and insisted they were better off this way. She said they just needed to keep climbing until they reached the stratosphere. Gigi argued it was too dangerous, and just as he was about to say they should head back, Momo cut him off and said no. She explained that if they couldn't defeat the typhoon human here, they would never make it to Shimane. Therefore, to defeat that typhoon human, they needed to destroy what was known as the Eye of the Typhoon. Once they reached the stratosphere, they finally saw what Momo was referring to. It was a literal giant eye at the center of that monstrous typhoon. Before long, they reached the top of the eye itself. As soon as they arrived, Gigi called out to Momo, and she immediately ordered him to go straight for the typhoon's eye and blast it with his evil gun at full power. As they drew closer to the pupil of the eye, Gigi said he couldn't use his evil gun properly like this because just holding on to the Tsukunoko was already draining everything from him. Momo told him she would hold him in place using her power, and she also ordered Zuma to help out. After that, Momo immediately used her powers to grab hold of the two of them so they wouldn't fall, and she informed them of it, telling Gigi to begin. Gigi praised her and called her incredible. Then he began preparing to fire his evil gun. He got into position, and shortly after, unleashed a massive evil gun blast at the eye. It passed by the Kido family at high speed, which shocked them and made them wonder what that was. Gigi's evil gun successfully struck the pupil of the eye, prompting him to cheer that it worked. However, the part it hit regenerated immediately, which left both him and Momo shocked and concerned. The eye began releasing electricity and seemed to be concentrating it at the center of its iris. Momo screamed that an attack was incoming and ordered Naki to steer them to a safe position. Thankfully, they managed to dodge it, but they saw firsthand how the sharks hit by it were completely disintegrated. A massive lightning strike enveloped the sky above them after the blast, prompting Momo to comment, now clearly overwhelmed, that their situation was becoming deadly. Gigi pointed out that if they got hit by one of those lightning attacks, they wouldn't survive. With deep concern, he asked Momo what they were supposed to do since his evil gun clearly wasn't working. Momo, irritated, told him he doesn't need to say that to her now. Momo then recalled Okarune's explanation from before, that the typhoon human itself was a living cryptid, and it seemed like something finally clicked in her mind. She immediately called out to Naki and ordered her to feed the Tsukunoko with as many frozen sharks as possible. Naki turned to her companions and commented that she'd been hearing Momo's voice for a while now, coming from who knows where, then furiously asked where the hell she even was. Irritated, Momo told her not to think about that and just do as she was told, calling her a dumbass. Naki fired back that Momo was the dumbass and explained that if they did what she wanted, their great serpent lord would no longer be able to fly. But Momo pointed out that it wouldn't matter anymore. They were going to dive straight into the eye of the typhoon. That left Gigi alarmed, and he asked if she was being serious, calling the plan crazy and explaining that even getting close to any part of it would get them struck down by lightning again. Naki then accused her of having given up all hope and trying to take them all down with her. But Momo made it clear she wasn't acting out of desperation and hadn't given up hope yet. The only thing she was thinking about was how to bring that creature down. She also told Naki that she was going to settle everything between them and the Kido family once and for all, but for now, she needed her to just get the worm to eat the sharks. Naki, seething with rage, shouted that Momo had no right to order her around. She called her a little shit and asked if she really thought she could just settle things with them like that. But despite those words, Naki still began feeding the sharks to the worm. She declared that she would feed the great serpent lord herself, not because someone told her to, but because it was her own will to do so. She asked the members of the Keto family if she was right, calling them bastards, and they all immediately responded that she absolutely was, and that what she was saying was true. Momo, annoyed, asked what difference that even made. After feeding the Tsukinoko, Naki sent it charging full speed into the eye while screaming, "Here they go." Gigi quickly alerted Momo that a lightning attack was coming. Momo then ordered Naki to fire off the sharks. Naki did as she was told, launching the frozen sharks into the lightning attack from the eye. The lightning bounced off the sharks, preventing it from hitting them directly. Gigi was amazed and said the sharks were acting like a shield, while Momo pointed out that electricity has a hard time penetrating ice. Little by little, they were able to get closer thanks to Momo's idea. But with that progress came fear from Gigi, who shouted that they were about to crash straight into the eye of the typhoon. Momo suddenly ordered Naki to veer off, and she did just that. They successfully flew past the eye, which made Naki question why they were dodging. She thought they were diving into it. Gigi informed Momo that they had already passed the eye of the typhoon, but Momo replied that it was fine and they were all good. She explained that what they were actually aiming for was the typhoon itself. Next, Momo instructed Gigi to fire his evil gun at the sea, which caught him off guard. She began explaining that a typhoon is formed by warm sea water and the water vapor it generates. But, she added, that warmth only exists at about 50 to 100 meters deep, and below that, the water is cold. So, she said, if they stir up the sea water in the eye of the typhoon, it would cool down and the typhoon would naturally weaken. Gigi called her a genius, and Momo smugly replied that she already knew that, so he should just hurry up and fire another blast. Gigi started focusing and began forming the sphere. Then, shouting the name of his signature move, Evil Gun, he sent it flying toward the typhoon with tremendous force, just like Goku unleashing a devastating attack. The blast looked like a massive laser beam shooting downward, and it successfully reached the sea. The intensity on Gigi's face showed that he wasn't letting up, not for a second. As Momo checked their progress, she had to tell Gigi that they still needed more power because the eye was closing in on them. She asked Naki how the shark launch was going, and Naki responded that their tank was empty. They had already spit out everything. She also warned them that the typhoon was approaching and starting to glow. Gigi kept pouring everything he had into his attack, growing more irritated as he wished it would hurry up and cool the sea already. Suddenly, Zuma grabbed Gigi's shoulder and arm, asking if this was the correct direction to attack, which surprised Gigi. Zuma then readied his umbrella and told Fuda to join him in using everything they got. His umbrella started to open and spin rapidly like a massive electric fan, boosting the speed and power of Gigi's evil gun. The blast area of effect expanded, covering a massive part of the sea, which allowed the mixing of the warm and cold water to happen much faster. Not long after, they successfully mixed the warm and cold layers of the sea, causing the typhoon human to begin slowly dissipating.